Welcome back to the 7-day How to Lose a Client in 7 Days challenge. Today's topic is something called the production line, which again is not about saying no to things, or it's a little bit around kind of understanding what capacity might be available in your business to do things. But this actually works really well for creative agencies especially, but anywhere where you've got a service which has multiple steps in the process. Because ultimately, and this is why it's so apt, with a production line, there are so many sort of components which you can squeeze into a production line in order to make your car or whatever the widget is at the other end. And a lot of moving parts happen in here, which is what I'm going to try and explain to you now. These little boxes here are called work centers. So if we were to think about website design, for example, it could be taking the brief, could be going through the first stage of the design process, maybe creating a prototype, maybe designing out some of the pages and then actually building it, adding some of the content. So each one of those steps in that service, that process, is called a work center. Now, at any one point in time, you can only push so much work through each one of these work centers. Typically in service-based businesses, these work centers are basically the people in the business. But it could be that maybe actually you outsource some of that work. One of the problems, or biggest problems that I see in a lot of service-based businesses, that this guy who's working on this work center also every now and then has to go and work on this work center. And you can then see that it creates a problem here. Because if he goes off and works down here on a different project, a different work center, there's nobody manning this bit of the project. And then all of a sudden, all of the projects that stack up behind this one particular work center stop. Now, typically for most businesses, we tend to get the money either here, or we get 50% of it like a deposit here, and then we get the rest of it here. So if at any point the work center, the production line stops, there's going to be a delay between us getting that money. Now, when the work is actually taking place, and this is a common mistake, people think that here is where it actually costs us money. So this is like the time-based element of stuff getting done. But actually, that's totally wrong. It's actually here that it costs us money. The time taken in between the different steps of your customer journey, your process that you take to deliver your projects. The longer this amount of time is, the longer it's going to take for you to get paid, and therefore it takes more money. Because normally we can measure how long that work center takes to deliver, we can measure how long that work center takes to deliver, we can measure how long that takes to deliver. But if for any reason there are, and like delays tend to be in here, the client. So if, like web design, if you're waiting for a client to come back with some copy, you could be waiting 8 weeks, but you don't want that to affect your cash flow. At the end of the day, like they talk about profit, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. I think cash is the most powerful thing in any business. And if you're having to wait any extra time to get your cash because the client is being a dick, then you need to do something about that. So have a look at the production line, and what I want you to do in the worksheet is to identify what the work centers are within your business, where bottlenecks tend to stack up. So this here is a bottleneck. Where you are under-resourced and your staff are spending time working on other things, or you're spending time working on other things. And these other things could be marketing, sales, accounting, bookkeeping, any of those things that aren't the three core sort of primary functions of marketing, sales and delivery, basically. So this is still very much in the delivery space. This stuff, if you're a one-man band, could be in the marketing, account, sales, like systems sort of space. But I want you to identify the work centers. I want you to identify the bottlenecks. I want you to start to get a picture of the capacity project, which we did on day 2, how that fits in with this and how much you and your staff are being under or overutilized. There is a magic number. The number is 72, and that's actually 72%. You should never be working at 100% of your capacity. You should only ever be working up to 72% of your capacity. And there's a very long-winded reason why that is, which I can go into another time, possibly during the Q&A. I might take some time to explain that number. But we never want to be working at full capacity. I mean, basically, the principle is that if we're working at full capacity across all of our work centres, if something goes wrong, we don't have any capacity we don't have any way of moving our capacity around. Whereas what this extra 28% of efficiency or capacity does is it means that if we have a bottleneck here, we can move some of this resource to help fix that bottleneck. That's the short version of it. One of the key things to remember through the production line is ultimately this is the output. These are called the inputs. So what we don't want to be doing is just chucking way too much input into our production line, because it will just clog up capacity. Something which I've been told, and I tell a lot of people now, is slow down to speed up. So we want to slow down the amount of work coming into the front end of our production line to stick within this capacity figure here, 72% of efficiency, so that it allows our production line just to flow. So work centres, bottlenecks, where you and your staff are being under or overutilised, and where you feel you might potentially be losing some money throughout this process. So that is the production line. That's day 5 of the 7-day How to Lose a Client in 7 Days challenge, and I look forward to seeing you on day 6.